Welcome to Literary Libations with Librarians. And this time we are sharing sensational summer reads. As we share our titles, if you'd like to get your hands on any of them, there's several ways to go about doing so. The quickest is probably just to give a phone call to your local branch of the Monroe County Library System and speak to the staff there. If you'd like to do it yourself, you can go onto our online catalog, and that web address is on your screen now. That'll allow you to request physical versions of the titles. And some of our titles you'll see are available digitally through one of our two provided apps. You can use Libby, and Libby has ebooks, audiobooks, and also magazines. Or a book may be available on Hoopla, and Hoopla has downloadable ebooks, audiobooks, and also movies, music, and graphic novels. And the great thing about Hoopla is if you see the lightning bolt next to the title, you know that there's no wait for that, and you and all of your friends can download that book at the same time. I am Jennifer Graneski, and I am the community librarian for the Dundee area libraries. And our introductory question this week is, what has been sensational about your summer so far? And I think my favorite thing, and I think it's pretty sensational about my summer so far, is that my 13-year-old has joined the Adrian City Band, which is a community band that anyone in high school or older, and they have a wide age range, can come and play. And they practice every Tuesday night, and they play every Thursday night at the Adrian Farmers Market. And they are fabulous. So it's been wonderful. Every Thursday night, I get to go on a mini date night with my husband, and Tony's grandparents from both sides have come and been able to watch him. We get to hear some great music. Weather's been great every night that they've had a concert, and I don't even know what concert we're on now, 5 or 6. So it's been really a fun experience and a great way for my son to be able to learn music from all ages. It was very funny. After the first practice, I asked him how it went, and he's like, "It's amazing. We get so much done," because he's used to playing with middle schoolers, and now he's playing with mostly adults, and they're moving through. You only get one practice for the concert, so they're moving through all those songs in 2 hours. So it has been a great experience. We're all enjoying it. So also with us this week is Kelly Beister, who is our branch technician at our South Rockwood Library. And what's been sensational about your summer, Kelly?
I think sensational, it feels normal. I know we were talking earlier, and I feel like it's pre-COVID, right? And it's feeling normal. We can take vacations and we can go out and not be so nervous. So that's been sensational. Also, I've been doing a lot of reading, which generally isn't a thing for me. So that has been sensational as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Kelly. Also with us is Jessica Otto, our head of the collections department. And what's been sensational in your summer, Jessica?
Probably the most sensational thing this summer is that at my home, we are now the new owners of a beehive. My husband was always interested in that, and so we actually got some. They came through the mail. But they didn't deliver it straight to our house. He had to go pick up the big box of buzzing bees at the post office. So we have a hive now. When they first came, I was like, oh man, we need one more thing to take care of. But what I have learned is that they are really self-sufficient little things. They've settled right into their hive, and they're pollinating my flowers and doing the whole thing. So it's been quite the sensational experience, very new. And other things are, I went to the zoo for the first time with my little ones in like 3 years. So that was pretty sensational, and they're having a wonderful time at their summer school program at the Educational Center through the ISD. So overall, our summers really has been sensational.
Excellent. Thank you, Jessica. And also with us is Joyce Tapke, who is a processor at our dummy administration building. And what's been sensational about your summer, Joyce?
Well, I agree with Kelly. It's sensational that things seem to be going back to quote unquote normal. We haven't really done a lot. We don't go anywhere for summer vacations anymore. My special needs daughter just cannot handle vacations. So we do our best to do some day things, and a lot of them just haven't happened yet. Well, of course, you know, we do the fair for one day. Not my special needs daughter, she can't handle that, but my other daughters and I go to the fair. Once or twice we go to the Renaissance Festival. We haven't done the zoo in a while, so we might do that. We might do the Henry Ford in Greenfield Village, because my daughter has a membership there this year. So I want to go see at the Henry Ford that the Disney costumes. I'd love to see that. But as for what's happened so far, if you're not familiar with Milan, in the summer we have something called Third Thursdays, and it's where the whole town pop-up shops happen, food trucks come in. There's always live music, not just on Third Thursdays, but a lot of time on Fridays they have live music in Toland Square. So there's usually something happening. I think block parties are new this year. Just normal fun stuff that's happening throughout the year are starting to happen again, which is awesome. And during the Third Thursdays, also the local churches do things for the kids. So it's a fun, if you happen to be in the Milan area, the third Thursday of the month throughout the summer, usually starts around 5 and goes to about 8. And just stop on by and buzz through and just see what Milan has to offer.
Excellent.
That's my commercial for my hometown.
It's pure Michigan.
Yes.
Thank you, Joyce. And I guess I will ask Kelly to go ahead and kick us off with her sensational summer reads.
Sure. So like I said, I've been doing a lot of reading, and one of the books that I just finished that was really good with our historical fiction book club was The Rose Code by Kate Quinn. Normally for our historical fiction books, we do a lot of World War II, which can be the same thing over and over again. So I was pleasantly surprised with this book. It's a little bit longer of a book, so picking it up, I was like, oh boy, I'm not going to have time for this. It was 18 hours of listening, totally worth it. Now, I will tell you, it was a little bit slow at the beginning as she's setting everything up, but again, totally worth the read. So The Rose Code by Kate Quinn. It's a book about 3 female code breakers, Asla, Mab, and Beth. All 3 of them are based roughly on real code breakers that worked at the Bletchley Park during World War II. The women form a friendship and a book club over the years, but there was a betrayal and a traitor amongst their colleagues, and it lands one of them locked up in an asylum for years after the war. But through a carefully smuggled out letter, she is able to make contact and make them aware of the traitor. And so they all work together to see if they can figure out who is the traitor selling the codes and leaking information to Russia at the time. So it was very interesting. This part of the war was very fascinating to me because, you hear of women building equipment and planes and doing their part at home, but to hear women using their minds to break these codes was amazing. And what I thought was even really more interesting was that this institute and their work shortened the war by nearly 2 years, historians are saying. So it had, obviously it's an important thing. I just didn't realize what kind of impact it had at the war that time. She investigates like the different relationships and how everything is compartmentalized in this institution, that sometimes wives and husbands had no idea that they worked at the same place in the future, or like if they met up later, because the oath that they have to take, the secrecy oath, is so important that like nobody talks about it. Actually, Asla, she didn't release her memoir and wouldn't let her memoir be released until she had passed away in 1975. That's how intense and serious these secrecy oaths are. So the fact that there was a traitor amongst them was a really, really big deal. In 2014, Bletchley Park was reopened and revamped, and actually Kate Middleton was the liaison for that. Her grandmother worked in Bletchley Park, and she said she remembered her grandmother saying that she did this kind of work, but that was it. Like they couldn't talk about it at all. Mab, which is one of the characters, who was also, like I said, she was based on an actual character. She actually works, or did work, part-time at Bletchley Park, giving tours and information to people who would come to the park. So yeah, it was very, very interesting. The relationships and the friendships in this particular time and this weird situation was just very interesting. And then to put that whole mysterious traitor thing, it was very, very good. I highly recommend it. Our book club is going to write a letter to Netflix. Dear Netflix, we would like a miniseries out of this book. At first we said a movie, but then we thought there's no way you can put all of this information into a 2-hour situation. So we would like it to be a series. So Netflix, if you're here, we would like a miniseries. If not, you'll be hearing from us. Love the South Rockwood Historical Fiction Book Club.
It's not based on this book, but there is a PBS Masterpiece series based on the Bletchley Circle. So
yeah, and but I don't know if we talked about that one or if it was the movie, because the gentleman who created the machines to help break these codes, there was I think what's his face?
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yes, he was in it, but it was more about him and the male version. So it was very interesting to hear about the females. Now, again, the females played a big part, but they weren't to their male equals. They weren't paid enough. They were, emotional, that kind of thing. And they talk about that a lot in the book. But yeah, like to have this whole relationship and this mystery behind it, we think would be like a really, really good miniseries. So the second book that I read this summer, I just finished and I'm reading the second one right now, is way different than this. And it's a young adult, and it's called A Curse of Ash and Embers by Joe Spurrier. And this is a fun fairy tale fantasy mixed read. It's one of those books where you don't really have to think about it. It just happens. Like it you don't have to think about it. You just read it and you enjoy it. And it's just, there's no thinking, which is a nice break sometimes for these books. So the main character, Dee, she is 17 and she's hired out to go work at Black Oak Cottage. She has no idea what she's going to find, but she's just happy to be leaving her home. Her stepdad is verbally abusive. Her mom doesn't step in to help her at all. She just tells her to be quiet, keep her head down, and do what she's told. She's taken out of school early so she can do all the chores and take care of the children. So she finds herself, once she gets to Black Oak, that she's going to be working for a witch. And her new mistress, Lydia, was not expecting a housemaid and can't believe that she's even on her doorstep. So both of them are really confused on why she's there. But Aladia's kin and teacher of the craft, Geisha Blackbone, she made monsters and lots of trouble for her and anyone who got in the way. But the old witch is dead now. And somehow it's Dee's job to clean up the mess. So Dee jumps right into her caretaker role like she did. But as she starts, my apologies, that's Panera. But as she starts becoming more comfortable with her environment, she finds out there's more to this story than what she thought. Geisha left a curse on Aladia, who's practically dead on her feet. So Dee does her best to try and revive her and fight the huge monsters roaming the woods and the demonic tree that's looking in the orchard and all of the things that Geisha has left for Alida to take care of. But no matter what the old witch has thrown at her, because spoiler, she comes back in like a spirit form. Dee does what she can to help because this is way better than anything that she had at home. Like I said, it was just a fun, easy read. I didn't have to think about it. And it was so good that I'm reading the second one, which is called Daughters of Lies and Ruin. So it's very good if you're looking for just a fun fantasy read.
Nice. Thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome.
And let's have Joyce share her sensational summer reads next.
Okay, well, my first recommendation for summer reads is a series of books called The Cat Who. These are a series of mystery novels written by Lillian Jackson Braun. There's 29 of them total. They were written between 1966 and 2007. She has since passed away. And they're just the good old-fashioned murder mystery books. Nothing too deep. They, what I call mind candy, you know, you don't want to learn all the time. you just want to be entertained. And that's what these are. The main character is a man named Jim Quillerin. He is an investigative reporter. He had, in the first book, he's just gone through a divorce. He is cleaned himself up. He is a recovering alcoholic, and he's trying to get back on his feet, broke as can be. And in this book, he comes across and eventually adopts a cat, a Siamese cat named Coco. And Coco is an extraordinary cat. He always seems to know who done it. And then he gives clues to Jim to figure out. And sometimes looking at him like, why don't you understand? This person did it. It's fun because it starts out in like a Midwest metropolitan, and then he, I think around the fifth book, he goes and visits a family friend up in Pickaxe City in Moose County. Now, they don't say where this occurs, but the entire rest of the series takes place in Pickaxe City in Moose County. Most people think that she based it on Bad Axe in Michigan. There's some of the stories take place. There's one that almost assuredly is supposed to take place on Mackinac Island, but it's the only indication as to where this is they constantly say it's 400 miles north of everywhere. So he's out in the middle of this, and the reason he stays there is because the family friend has passed away and left him her fortune. But the stipulation is he's got to live there. So he decides to live there and share the fortune with everybody else. But of course, murders happen at an alarming rate when you think about it. But his cat is always there to help him. He does adopt another cat named Yum Yum as a companion to Coco, both Siamese cats. She is an ordinary Siamese. He is, but you know, Coco is, he's the star. He's the one. And Jim, of course, big rough tough guy, he absolutely adores these cats, and it's just fun. There's nothing, like I said, there's nothing too deep. It's just one murder mystery after another, and it's kind of fun to see if you can figure out who did it before Jim does and after Coco has figured it out. So there's a bunch of them. There's titles like The Cat Who Could Read Backwards. That's the first one. The Cat Who Played Brahms, The Cat Who Played Post Office, The Cat Who Knew Shakespeare, on and on and on and on. There's a whole bunch of them, and you can pretty much pick them up whenever. Just pure entertainment. So that's my first recommendation. My second recommendation, I didn't realize I had a theme of cats going on. But the second recommendation is Dewey. And look at him. Look at him. He's gorgeous. Dewey, read more books. That's his name. He was one of the most famous library cats in the world. He was found on a very, very cold morning. Somebody had stuffed him into the book drop. And the librarian for the library, Vicki Myron, found him. She said she couldn't believe that any living being could be that cold and still be alive. So she took him in, she cleaned him up, they fed him, and she thought, well, why doesn't the library just keep him? He lived to be about 19 years old. He spent almost every bit of it in the library. He was given the title of staff supervisor.
Nice.
And she had taken that photo, the one on the cover of the book, and she entered him into a pet photo contest where he won by 80%. She said she was almost embarrassed by that. But that got picked up by the local papers. And then it got picked up by the state papers. And then it got picked up by the national papers. Then he appeared in Country Magazine. And then he appeared in Cats Magazine. And then he was featured on Paul Harvey's radio show. And then a documentary about library cats came and filmed for him. And then a Japanese crew came and filmed him for a documentary on working cats. So this cat was literally internationally famous. In fact, he even had a cult following in Japan. He was so patient and so very calm. He was great to work with the kids. When they had meetings in the libraries, like staff, not staff, but board meetings would come in, Dewey would come around the table and look at each person. He'd choose one to sit on their lap, and that person had bragging rights for, until the next meeting. And it's just a lovely, lovely biography. It's really part biography of Dewey himself, and then it's part biography of the author and Dewey's mom, Vicki Myron. And then it's also part history of the town of Spencer, Iowa, and their library. So it's, I consider it an easy read. It's obviously nonfiction, but I consider it a very easy read. The people I've talked to have read it. They're the same way when they get to that last chapter, because again, he was 19, and unfortunately cats don't live as long as we do. Many people couldn't even read that chapter because they'd fallen in love with this cat and just, but I think he should be always read about. We have the regular book, we have a juvenile version of that book, and we have in our system a couple of children's books. And one of my favorite pictures in this book, this kind of sums up how Dewey handled children. he had no, he was like, what do I do? But he was so gentle. And as the mother of a special needs child, there's a couple stories about the special needs kids who came in and how Dewey treated them. And it made me tear up every time I read it. It's just wonderful, wonderful story. There's also a book called, also by Vicki Myron, called Dewey's 9 Lives, and it's other stories of Dewey from other people's point of view and of other extraordinary cats. And, books and cats, you can't go wrong. You cannot go wrong. So those are my recommendations.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Joyce. Now I want to go out and get a cat.
Yes. You should. Go to the shelter, and if there's a cat there for you, they'll let you know, because I think we can all agree, you don't pick your cat picks you.
All right, thank you, Joyce. And let's have Jessica share her sensational summer reads.
Okay, so we cannot talk about summer sensations without mentioning Shark Week. For those who are not familiar, Shark Week is the Discovery Channel's annual week-long celebration of all things shark. Shark Week first aired in the summer of 1988. According to NPR, it is now TV's longest-running programming event. Shark Week 2022 kicks off on July 24th, and MCLS has got the content that you need to get ready for this year's event, including my first title, Sharkopedia, the complete guide to everything shark. This book was published in 2016 by the Discovery Channel in anticipation of that year's Shark Week. It contains information on all 498 known shark species. And I like that they pointed out the known, because that implies that there could be some unknown shark species out there still. This book covers the shark anatomy, shark orders, habitats, senses, feeding habits, and their behaviors. The book also focuses on the relationship between sharks and humans, including shark research and conservation efforts. There are also sections on shark record breakers, shark bites, and even a special section on newly discovered sharks. They're still out there discovering new sharks. The more than 400 photos included in this book will give you close-ups of each shark species, including the great white shark, the bull shark, and the tiger shark. There are also several fun fin facts scattered throughout the book to give you even more info on these wonders of the deep. The book also includes a fascinating introduction by marine biologist and Shark Week expert, Andy DeHart. He explains that sharks are not the mindless monsters of the deep that they were once thought to be. Yes, sharks occasionally bite humans, but those are most often cases of mistaken identity. No shark species has humans as part of their regular diet. In truth, sharks are intelligent, expert hunters with exceptional senses. So if you are looking forward to this year's Shark Week, check out a copy of Sharkopedia and you will be a shark expert in no time. My second book has to do with my sensational summer, and I mentioned honeybees. Honeybees have been a new fascination for me. And so when I found this book, I thought that would be a great sensational summer title. My second title is Honeybee Rescue, a backyard drama by Lori Griffin Burns with photos by Ellen Harasimowicz. It takes place at the home of a Mr. Connery. One day, Mr. Connery was walking through his vegetable garden when he noticed a buzz, buzz, buzzing coming from his rickety old barn. Mr. Connery poked his head inside of a window that had no glass, and he quickly discovered that a colony of honeybees had moved into his ramshackle barn. Now, Mr. Connery keeps honeybees in his wooden hive boxes in his yard, and he keeps them because they collect nectar, and in the process they pollinate his plants. When Mr. Connery saw the bees in the barn, he knew what had happened. One of his bee colonies had outgrown its home. Normally, Mr. Connery notices when a family of bees is getting too big for its hive, but sometimes it happens so fast that Mr. Connery misses the signs, and the bees, efficient little creatures that they are, decide to deal with the problem on their own by swarming. So swarming is the process in which the colony in a hive, single hive, splits itself into two, and one half stays and forms a new queen is formed, and the original queen, the old queen, she takes off and leaves with the other half of the colony. And so right away they sort of settle into this hanging blob of clustered bees while they send out hundreds of worker bees to go scout for a new permanent residence. And when the new home is found, the swarm moves into that new location. And that's what happened with this colony of bees living in Mr. Connery's barn. Now, Mr. Connery knew that this barn that had holes and leaks, not even glass in the windows, it would not protect this bee colony in the winter. So he knew that the colony needed to be moved somewhere safe. To do that, Mr. Connery called a bee rescuer, Mr. Nelson. Mr. Nelson specializes in moving bees from dangerous places. He has rescued bees from places such as fireplaces, church steeples, and even the walls of family homes. He does this so that these places where they have all these bees, he doesn't want them to exterminate the bees. He wants them to keep these vital pollinators alive. And so he goes and helps them move that so we can keep these beneficial insects around. So Mr. Nelson arrived at Mr. Connery's barn with his trusty bee vacuum cleaner, aka the Honeybee Sucker Upper. It is designed to suck up tens of thousands of bees to keep them safe and out of the way while they are moved to a new home. So, will Mr. Nelson rescue all the bees from the barn colony? Will the bees find a new home? Will they be safe for the winter? Well, to find that out, you'll have to read the book. Now this book is actually a true story that came about after the author was connected to Mr. Nelson, the bee rescuer, through her housekeeper, or house painter, excuse me, her house painter, who had been painting another house, and when they were painting it, came across these thousands of bees in the roof. And he explained how Mr. Nelson got involved to help this, and the author was a beekeeper herself and became fascinated and got Mr. Nelson's contact info, reached out to him. And then she has, and since has accompanied him on some of his bee rescuing missions, including this one to the home of Mr. Connery. The book also includes an interview with Mr. Nelson, a glossary, and sources for further reading. With a riveting story and gorgeous photos, this Junior Library Guild standard selection will keep you captivated from the very first page and will teach children that bees are not something to be feared, but rather beneficial insects that should be protected.
Yes, Kelly, I see that hand.
So we are obsessed with bees at my house, specifically Simon and I. And on Instagram, we follow the Texas Bee Works, and her name is Erica Thompson. And she does TikToks and Instagram videos about the bees, and we have learned so much. And Simon got a little Save the Bees flower kit for Easter, and he was so excited. We sent her a message to show her that we were doing our part to save the bees. But it's so fascinating, bees and like what they do and their job. And even in the hive, like they're basically made up of females, and they are, you know, they have the worker bees and they have the queen bee. Like, it's just all very fascinating. So we are on board with the bees.
Awesome. That's awesome, Kelly.
Oh, that's amazing. And I love that Joyce was like, yeah, I know who you're talking about too. Clearly,
yeah.
I am out of the bee loop.
Yeah, the Texas lady, she has the most melodic voice, and she talks, and she has also pulled out like from washing machines and things like that. But I couldn't help listening to Jessica. See, my family has always kept bees. My dad started it, my grandfather, my uncles. And one time when I was at my grandfather's house mowing their lawn, that's when the hive decided to swarm. So my grandmother had to call my grandpa in real quick, and I do remember the huge blob that was hanging from a tree, because they had just hung from a tree, and my grandpa got an empty hive underneath them and literally just cut the branch so the whole thing went down. He said, if the queen goes in, we should be okay. And sure enough, she went in, she thought, okay, this is good. And then he had another hive. So it's fascinating to watch them.
Mm-hmm.
I learned something new every time we do one of these. Thank you, Jessica.
You're welcome.
Oh, Kelly's saying something.
I forgot about my bee tattoo. I love bees so much, I have it permanently on my body.
Wow.
Oh, nice. All right. And now I'm going to share my entirely uneducational titles with everyone. Yeah, you aren't going to learn anything from these. So there you go. So I think of summer, I think of books that I just want to read and enjoy. And so you can pick, I have two books here. If you need an adrenaline rush where you never know who's going to die next, and there's scares around every corner, you can pick up Grady Hendrix's The Final Girl Support Group. Or if you want something to relax with that you know is going to have a happy ending, you can pick up Jasmine Guillory's By the Book. So I'll start with The Final Girl Support Group. Last summer was a big summer in horror fiction for books based on the final girl slasher trope. And if you're not familiar with that, in slasher movies, it's almost always a female who ends up surviving at the end and hopefully managed to kill the slasher. But if you're going to make sequels to these movies, you can't always kill them, or the slasher's got to have relatives that are going to come back. You know, that's how it goes. So in this one, Grady Hendrix has said, what if instead of being fictional, all of those slasher movies actually started because they were based on real life slaughters? So he takes those and says, what if real women survived these? How would they handle that? So each of his characters is based on the final girl from either the Friday the 13th franchise or Halloween or Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And our main one is Lynette. And Lynette is the character. I just want to mention that if you listen to the book, the narrator is Adrienne King, who actually starred as the final girl in the first Friday the 13th movie. So I just thought that that was kind of a cool thing that they did for the audiobook. So we're here with Lynette. She and other final girls, final women, have been meeting as a support group for the last 15 years. Because now, not only have they survived losing their friends and family in this crazy way, now their lives are also being commodified to create these movies and series of movies and books for the entertainment of everyone else. So it's kind of an interesting way to look at horror and to look at what we get our entertainment from, and for these women, how they're handling this trauma and how they're also benefiting in a weird way from it, and the guilt that can come with that. Like, so that's all happening. And then also Lynette lives her life. She's going to protect herself no matter what. She's got several locks on her doors. She's got cameras. She lives alone. When she goes out, she's always makes sure that she has some sort of weapon on her. She runs every day so that she's prepared. If anything like that were to ever happen to her again, she will be ready. And now she thinks that one of their slashers is back, that one of them didn't actually die, and that that slasher is targeting the women in the final girl support group. And so then the rest of the novel is based on, is there someone out there? And if there is, are all of these women going to be able to survive again? So it's a really, again, you can just read it as a horror novel, but there's a whole other layer there to this book as well, which I really appreciate having in there, that it's not just kill, 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 that there's other considerations in there. But if that is not your cup of tea and you would prefer to have something more laid back, something that's going to, you know, give you a smile, pick up Jasmine Guillory's By the Book. This is the second book in the Meant to Be series, but the Meant to Be series, every book is a standalone. So the first book, you don't need to read that at all to enjoy this one. The Meant to Be series are romance novels based on Disney movies. So the first one is based on Cinderella. The second one is based on Beauty and the Beast. And so Isabel is an aspiring editor, but right now she's only an assistant editor in her publishing house. And it's not going real well. She is the only woman of color there. Things just sometimes get weird. She doesn't always know if it's safe for her to speak out about things that mean a lot to her. So she's just not sure how it's going. And then she's got Gavin, who she thought Gavin was her friend. And he turns out he's telling her that her boss doesn't like her, that her boss has been saying that she's not sure she's going to ever, you know, be ready for a promotion. And so Isabel is not sure that maybe she needs to leave publishing, but she loves books. She's not sure. Well, they're going to a conference in Santa Barbara. She lives in New York right now. They're going to a conference in Santa Barbara. And while they're at the conference, she hears her boss talking to an editor from another publishing house about the difficulties that she is having with Bo, who is a former celebrity wild child who has received a contract to write his autobiography. And it's been a year, and Bo has submitted nothing. He's not submitted, you know, like doesn't respond to emails, doesn't do anything. Well, Isabel overhears this. Bo happens to live in the Santa Barbara area. And so she tells her boss, I'll go knock on Bo's door and I will go see what's going on and at least try to get some face-to-face contact and see what we can do. So she does that. I won't describe how it happens, but it's funny. Bo answers the door. He's not super pleased to see Isabel at all. He's kind of angry. He's very gruff. You might even say he sort of has beastly manners. But he does want to get this book done. And so he suggests that Isabel come and stay at his house and become his writing coach to get him through the process, to get him started. He doesn't want to use a ghostwriter. He wants to write the book himself. And so Isabel agrees for 2 weeks. She will move in and she will work with him every day to get his book written, even though he's incredibly rude to her. So that's the basis of the book. Isabel and Bo are there. They've got to get this book done. They both have very powerful personalities. And that's the book. I mean, do you kind of see where the book's going? Of course you do. But do you enjoy it along the way? Yes, because Guillory creates great characters. They're very fun. And one of my favorite parts about these books is there's all these little hidden Easter eggs to the movies. So characters and plot lines and things, you're like, how are you going to make that modern? Somehow it's in there and you're like, oh, and you catch it and then you kind of pat yourself on the back. So you get that fun as well as the fun of just reading a book that's enjoyable about 2 people falling in love. So if you need an adrenaline rush, I got one there. If you just need a great book that's going to make you smile and you love Disney, then I got that for you too. So thank you to all of you for sharing your sensational summer reads. Thank you for those of you that listened. And the next time that we're back, we're going to be sharing books that you should take with you on your vacation. So we hope you'll listen next time too. Thanks. Bye.